So, welcome to episode one of the FEX Toolkit podcast. My name is Joe Wall. I'm one of the co-founders of FEX Toolkit.
Uh, my name's Frankie. I'm the other co-founder of ITK Toolkit.
And we do have one other member who's with us at the beginning, Marianella. Hopefully she'll be on a later episode. She handles all of our design. But this podcast, we're going to do it for now every 2 weeks. It's going to be pretty informal. We're just going to go over some things related to the software, final expense, where we're going, and what we have planned, and just to really connect with our user base a little bit more and potential users as well. So we really felt like this would be a good way to do that. So what we're going to start with, we have a few different things we're going to talk about today. The first one that I want to touch on before Frankie gets into what he wants to say is how we kind of got to this point, how we developed FBX Toolkit and where we plan to go. So this has been a project that we started back in December of 2019. So it's been almost a year now. I think initially, Frankie, how did we actually come up with the idea for
Well, do you remember the question you asked me? You sent me a text message like around Christmas time about Google Voice numbers. Do you remember that?
I think I remember the
you were trying to figure out how to import numbers from I guess a spreadsheet into Google Voice, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. The leads to make them easier to call.
And around that time, I was trying to start a couple of companies. I had read like a couple years before about this guy that started 12 startups in 12 months, and it had gotten to a point for him where he was living off of that. And so I was very ambitious, and I was like, I'm going to start 12 startups in 12 months. But and over that summer, I had started 2 in August and July, or July and August, and it was very difficult. But the reason it was difficult was because I launched one of them, and it was like, wow, this is a really good idea, so I wouldn't keep going with that idea. But I wasn't able to do what he was doing. But I had that like developed the entrepreneurial spirit for me, and so I was trying to find ideas in different different fields. And so that's why when you had sent me that text, I'm like, oh, maybe he has problems that he might want to solve in insurance. I'm like, I never even thought about insurance. So then I had sent you a text message, and I was like, do you have any other problems in the space that you think could be solved? And that's pretty much.
Yeah, I think we had a few ideas initially. I think one of them was like to aggregate for Medicare carriers, to aggregate the different providers into one platform, but that we never even looked into that for a variety of reasons. That would be a big headache. If anyone wants to develop that, there's your idea if you just credit. But we settled on, I think initially we were going to just build like our version of a final expense quoter, because as anyone who's worked in this business, even mortgage protection, it's a very technology bereft industry. There's just not much out there. There's not many options. If you're looking at really anything outside of CRMs, you're not going to find too much. And that doesn't mean we can't do our jobs, but I think that in 2020, technology has really proven for the pandemic. We're on Zoom right now. Technology can really help us do more, or achieve more than what we can do without it. Even though since I've been in the industry since I was 18, it's a lot of people are kind of against technology. I would say in insurance, a lot of people think that the paper cheat sheets and doing things by hand outside of just quoting is just the way to do it. And there's definitely value in learning it. And we're going to talk about how we integrated kind of that aspect of things into our software. We don't want it to be a crutch. We want it to be a tool. But I think I value technology very highly. I think Frankie does obviously as well, because of our age. That's what we grew up with. So initially, when we had decided to go ahead with this idea, which was the kind of the quota and the underwriting, the health questions, the drugs, building it all in, we kind of, at least for me, I don't think Frankie thought this. I thought it would be a 2 to 3 month project. We were going to throw these cheat sheets and all these carriers together and we'd be done. But lo and behold, it was not like that. It's now almost a year later, and I wouldn't say we're even close to where we want to be in terms of our ultimate, goal. And since that time, we built this without any funding. We had no IMO backing us, nothing. We since have a partner, and we'll have hopefully him on a later episode, but he's not really contributed to the main brunt of what we had developed. And that was really the hard part, because what a lot of people don't realize is that is not something that you can do for 2 hours when you get home. For me, at least, I only graduated from the University of Delaware in May, and granted, the last part of our semester was online, but it's not easy to go to class half the day. I was working full time. AEP was right in that winter, which I'm working 7-8 hours a day, it's a lot. And then working on this is all the data you have to input in the design. And we had, no one using it at the time. So it was the two of us working on it and improving it. And now I think, Frankie, how many users are we up to in terms of our weekly active?
Oh, we have 66 active users right now. Well, we have 66 users in the system right now, maybe about 40 of which use the software daily. And I run statistics on the users, very basic statistics on the users, like every other day or so. And um, and we have a few power users that are running like 50 quotes a day, and then other users who use it like once a week or something like that.
I think that's something that we were really surprised about because since I was 18, I was always a field agent. I first started when I was in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is very rural. So you're driving 2 hours between appointments, an hour to go to the training every week. But it was very much in person. I never even thought of telesales. And it was only until I recently moved my IMO that I work typically as a Medicare, agent in the field, moved to Innovative Financial, and we kind of looked at the telesales aspect, and that's actually how we kind of got in touch with our partner. And we didn't even realize when building it that telesales, and of course the whole pandemic accelerated that, was such a big part of this business. For the longest time, for probably really the first 7 months of development, we were just building it for the field agent. And of course there's a lot of overlap, so it's not like we had to do a complete 180 once we discovered the utilization in the call center environment. But we really realized that this isn't software just for these people in the field, but it can also be used for people selling at home or in a call center. And that's, I would say, where a lot of the use comes in, where you don't want to have someone coming to you 5 times a day with different health questions. You want them to at least, I always liken this kind of software to a GPS, where it's not going to always take you 100% of the way there, but it can take you 90% of the way there. Maybe you have to, park the car the last few hundred feet, but that's really what we view the software as, is there's never going to be a perfect solution, just like how human underwriters will never be perfect, because you can't really know until you submit the application. But at the very least, you can put yourself in the best spot. And there's things that you just can't memorize, red flag medications and certain combinations. And that's all the kind of stuff that we build into the software. And we use all of our data points and do everything we can to improve it in that way. So going back to kind of the beginning is it was really, like I mentioned, it was 12 hours a day between the three of us, really me and Frankie a lot of the time, but the two of us every single day, working on our first alpha build was nothing. If any of you have been to our website, what you see and what you use with our software today is nothing like what we had at the beginning, which was just a very basic, just like a little box and a screen where you could enter some health and drug information. And then it's really expanded, and what we call it on the website is the only all-in-one solution for final expense agents. We wanted to build in, the CRM, and we don't use any third-party platform. We build it on our own custom code base. We actually released version 1.0 last weekend, Frank. I think that took like 2 weeks for us to really get in version 1.
CRM?
Yeah.
Yeah, the CRM took 2 weeks of 15-hour days to finally release, and that was only for the web version. But
and that's just one aspect of it. And we wanted to put our own spin on it. And in the future, we're not opposed if we're gonna pivot in that regard. But everything you see in the software is what we built completely ourselves. Our algorithms and everything else, our design. We wanted to give our own take on it, and we're constantly improving what we have in there. I think that's one of the big challenges, is we weren't just building this linear thing. It's something that's constantly evolving and changing as we get feedback from users. I mean, I would say the majority of what you see in our software is based on user feedback. We have, like Frankie said, our power users, but the constant feedback that we get from our users, just like, can you add this or modify this, or this medication has this use, because we wanted to make it, as easy use as possible. But that can really only be done by talking to the people and valuing the input of people who,
But that was only that was more of a recent development, because as we were developing this, we weren't really getting much feedback. Like, we were talking to some people, but most people didn't really take it that seriously.
Oh yeah, well, I would say that at my old IMO, that was when we first showed it to anyone, was in January. It was like January 2nd or 3rd of 2020, and I had showed it to my old IMO, who the two of the top people there, and they were interested in the idea, and they had even spent something like $30,000 to try to develop their own. I think it was the version of what we have is the health cheat sheet. They tried to develop that, and for whatever reason, it's difficult to do. For whatever reason, it didn't pan out. And I think that highlights, like, this is an idea. Like, if you look on insurance forums, there's people from back in 2008, 2009 that have had the idea for, what if someone could build like an all-in-one software solution, and it's been tried time and time again. There's just not, you're not, it's not like a CRM where you Google CRMs and you have 18 different options what you can pick from. So there's just not much out there. And, we did get interest, at the beginning. It was a cool concept, was kind of the feedback we got, but we didn't get people weren't using it the way that we had wanted in the beginning. It's like people were supportive, but it only, I would say within the past few months, we had really kind of giving people accounts, giving people a build, like this is ready for you to use. It has the carriers you want. Give us your feedback. And that's really how we've gotten, I would say, the person that I work with, my current IMO, and I've worked with for many years, Josh Jensen, he's pretty much been our biggest supporter of the software. He has all of his agents using it. I mean, he has, from how many, like 9 or 10, probably even, I don't know what the exact number is, but he has a lot of his agents using it. And I would say a good chunk of our feedback is just from him, because he's a huge advocate of what we build. And it's really, he's a person who's always been the kind of the underwriter where you underwrite it yourself. You don't need software, you don't need tech, like just work hard and do it. But even he, I think, has, and that's really been motivating for us to see people like that pick it up. They love it. They see the value in it. It makes their lives easier, people with agents. And it makes you more money because you're getting more stuff placed, stuff is staying on the books. You're making sure your agents aren't taken. I remember one of my first policies I wrote was in the final expense when this was about 3.5 years ago, was Rural Neighbors. And I took a 40% commission hit because the client was like 82. And I didn't know I didn't read the commission statement. I didn't memorize it. And at that point it was done. If I had gone back, I probably would have went Transamerica if I knew, but that's why we have the kind of stuff in our software to let.
And what really helped steer us too is these problems that you were having personally, because you being an agent, we were pretty much solving your problems in the beginning. And remember we had that BSG feature, and you're like, oh, this would be really cool for a point of sale tool or whatever it was. And so a lot of the initial things we were doing were solving problems that you had. It would all be really cool if we had this. Oh, this would make my job easier. And that really helped steer us in the right direction. Then we got Josh to give us feedback, and we off to the races from there when we got our first couple of users. But it was really solving your problem, especially because I knew nothing about this, which was really interesting for me to, I eventually learned a lot about the insurance industry after, but it was really solving your problem. So
yeah, that's I think why it was so difficult to develop for a lot of it, is that we were always changing. We had build a feature, then we have to modify it, or someone comes along and gives us a better path, and because it's not all about my problems, it's problems that other people are having too. And we really didn't have the perspective for that until we got it in the hands of a lot more people. So that was, I think, one of the bigger challenges that we had, was getting into the hands of people so that we had more of a direction of what to build. But I think after we had shown it the first time, I think it was really kind of a dead time after that. We were just working on it. There wasn't any promise of, there's no funding, there was no partner, we didn't really have any direction. It wasn't even really it kind of was, I think, if you build it, they'll come, was kind of just the attitude we had to have, because there was no hope of anything. We were working 10, 12 hours a day combined. And again, I was in school full-time, working full-time, and then Frankie has other, job and everything else. There was no promise ever. It's only very recently, where I would say it was probably a month and a half ago, today is the 28th of November, that we really kind of solidified how we're going to be doing it moving forward. But that was, I think, one of our most difficult tribulations when building it, is that it didn't make us work any less hard. It probably made us work harder, but it was just, there was never any promise of anything.
But what made us continue? Because there was never really a time where we said, oh, we're going to have to see if this is a good idea, and we'll take some time off. We consistently worked on this for a year. There's not a single lack or a span of time where I was not motivated to continue. And I was trying to think about, before we did this episode, what was that motivation to continue? It was pretty much just the fact that I had you as my partner. I'm like, I have to do this because Joe's putting this work in, and I'm sure that you were the same. Well, Frankie's putting this work in, so I have to do the data stuff. And it was kind of this back and forth between us that eventually led to this point where we had the motivation, where we got a partner, and it was now we have the motivation of, well, we realize this is going to be a good product, and we just have to get it to market now. But before that, like you said, there was no one really telling us or even offering us any kind of financial or other incentive to continue working on this. It was just, for some reason, we knew that, I don't know. Do you have any?
Well, and I agree, and I think definitely it was you didn't want to let the other person down. You wanted to, for me mainly, it's that I wanted to. It's kind of like a lottery ticket almost. So there's no guarantee of anything, but if we can build this, if we do it right, the way I see it, there's nothing out there like it. There's no one platform where you quote underwrite, point of sale tool, CRM, and we have a lot of other stuff planned too. There's just nothing. And the industry is so big, it's growing, especially now with so many people losing their jobs due to the pandemic. Being an independent agent, is growing. I forget what the statistic was before the pandemic, but the senior market is something like 9% growth per year, and the everything else is really like at 3 or 4. I don't know what it's changed to. I'm sure it's tipped even further in the balance of being an independent agent, but that was really a consideration too. Is that if we could build this right, we can really have something incredible here. And that was really the challenge: is that there's no guarantee at all. There was never any promise. And Frankie, this is your full time job now. Luckily, thanks to our partner, we have that backing, and we have the ability to focus on it more. Me more so too, as we go through and we gain more users. But we haven't even gotten to the point where I would say we've even officially launched it yet. I think we're really planning that for January. There's nothing magical that's happening at that point. We're just going to really start pushing it out more. But it's just been a very long time, and we just couldn't lose motivation, because at no point could we just put it out and say, try this out to see what happens, because you always have to be adding carriers, revising data, adding features. It's something that the littlest thing, you tell someone preferred instead of standard, it blows up the whole thing. Or you tell someone a quote that's $2 off. You have to be perfect, and you have to constantly be, every day we're getting more and more suggestions, and that are all valid. And we have this whole to-do list of things we have to do and docket, and it's almost a time management thing at this point, because we have the mobile app and everything else. And I think we'll get into more of in a little bit what our path is, but I would say that's pretty much been our development of the software. It's been a very difficult, very long process for us to get to this point. Even.
You would say you knew from the beginning that this was a good idea worth pursuing and putting a year's worth of work at this point into, like, you knew.
I never anticipated years, but
well,
I knew, because there was nothing like it. I mean, well, I had been at my first IMO that I started. It was a massive IMO, and there's no technology at all. Like, you're underwriting by hand or calling your upline. The second IMO I went to was super, super small in South Carolina. Obviously, nothing. It's just paper cheat sheets or calling the person at the office. My third IMO, same thing. They had a lot more support. You have the agent hotline, but it's all based on paper. There's nothing where you can just put it in. No one was even using it. Anything else like that. So it was all based on, not even a suggestion. It was just, this is how you do it. You get the paper cheat sheet. You call the carriers for a risk assessment. Like, that's it. There's just nothing else. And I looked at, we were looking around. There's just nothing really. Even when you ask about a CRM, you ask 3 different agents, what CRM do you use? You're going to get 3 different answers. There's a few that are kind of geared for final expense, but there's not really too many. You can't just Google final expense CRM and really get a comprehensive list of, like, these are the top 5 and this is what they do for you. And our CRM is constantly developing. We only put out version 1, like I said earlier last week. But yeah, I mean, that's really the tough part of this kind of development, is that there's so much to it, and there's people rely on it, because we all work for ourselves, or most of us are 1099. Some people are W2, but you're relying on yourself. So if we're building this tool that people are going to be paying for, we really kind of had the onus on ourselves that we have to make this as good as we can be, because people are going to be relying on this. And that's kind of the initial feedback that we got from some of our first users that we didn't know, who discovered us. That was the feedback that we got, is we're helping them out in a way that it's like I said, it's not a crutch, it's a tool for them. It helps them out. It's not going to do the whole thing for them. It's not going to underwrite every single case for them and sell the product, but it's going to be that thing that makes them not have to be able to call their upline in every house, or have to reference the paper cheat sheet, or forget about a combination of medications that might be a decline. Or, the client tells you, I made the reference in our demo video that we put up, our new demo video yesterday, but I had a client a little while ago that told me he was taking Entresto for high blood pressure. Meanwhile, that is a congestive that's a heart failure medication. Like, you can't take it you might have blood pressure. Your doctor might have told you that, but you're taking this medication for this. So that's a whole nother part of it as well that we had to grapple with.
That's why we put so much emphasis on the quality rather than releasing as soon as possible, because our agents rely on this working. And I mean, I get an email from one of our agents occasionally, because he was using our software since the very early beta stages, and he was having problems like logging into the software, or logging into the mobile app when he was going to his agents' houses. And it's these little things that you think, oh, we have to get it out fast, but we really have been focusing on fixing those issues and making sure that, what I'm trying to say is, we're really focused on making this a quality software product, and that's why it's just been so much work. And it's kind of against the whole the whole startup philosophy of make something make the MVP and launch it as soon as possible. And this was kind of the philosophy that I was following when I told you I was starting those or trying to do that 12 startup in 12 months thing. make the MVP and launch the MVP. And that's not really what we can do with something like this, because if it doesn't work right, we're going to be costing people money. So yeah.
Yeah, we've had people we've even had the conversation of when do we start moving beyond this? ULs, term, med subs, and that's not even an item on our docket right now. There's so much more to do with the toolkit, and we plan to hopefully in quarter 1 of next year to have an additional coder, because Frankie right now I'm naive to code. I can't do any of it. So Frankie's doing everything, the mobile app and the website, and for someone like me and probably most of you watching it, it's kind of a foreign language, but it's completely, mobile app is completely different from the website, and a little update or like a UI update could take a week in some cases. So we're having to budget our time. So that's something that we plan to do. Um, Hopefully in quarter 1 we can hire another person and really expand our efforts. But we've had people ask, and it's just like we have to make this as good as we can first, and then we can move on to expanding it and making. And there's so much more you can do with it, but we need to make it as good as we can for final expense agents before we move on to term and med subs. And there's just so much more that we can build out. And so we probably have 50 items on our to-do list just of smaller things. So that's really one of the biggest challenges is, when do we expand, but we also we never want to abandon the product or stop working on it, because this is the main thing. This is FEX Toolkit. But even at the very beginning, we named the LLC Insurance Toolkits because we knew that maybe one day we're going to expand. And that was at the very onset of it. But we knew that maybe one day if this becomes something, we're going to expand it beyond just final expense. But for, the foreseeable future, for the good amount of time that we can foresee, it's going to be final expense. That's what we're going to be focusing on and making the very best product that we can, because there's so much you can do within the software.
So what is your like let's say we were looking 3 years out or something like that. What is your vision for what FEX Toolkit could be?
Well, I hope that, there's always going to be a subset of people who just don't, well, some people will use this for the quoting, you don't have to use every aspect of the software. Like we've talked about, maybe some people will just like the CRM that we, notably continue to build. But the way I see it, there's going to be, I would say the bulk of our users are going to be confined within organizations. Like an organization is going to pick it up and distribute it to their agents, and they teach it, they all use it, and it's kind of, the hive of them together. That's probably what I envision it to be. And then a lot of independent agents who don't necessarily, like I did when the second IMO was that, you don't really have that huge level of support. You don't have an upline. I didn't have an upline. It was just the IMO, just this little place in South Carolina. So agents like that who just want the support, and we even have a few of those agents now who are kind of on their own, and they just want a little bit more support. They want a way to store their clients without paying an arm and a leg for a CRM. And that's, I think, looking forward, I think our pricing is something that's very important to us. We had priced it initially at $19.99, and we had realized as we kept building it almost seemed too cheap. Like we wanted to sell it for 20, but we almost realized like people are going to look at it and say, what's wrong with it? Why are they selling this for $20? So as of today, at least, where it's at $29.99, we don't plan to move that. And for our business plan, $34.99. But that's something that's, I think, important to me going forward too, is that we never want to charge, at least for the base product, which is everything that we built, $70, $80, $90. It's just, to me, it's like, I look at it in the way as when I started, what could I have afforded, or what can any agent really afford? 20, 30 bucks a month? Because you can talk all day about the value it creates and everything else, but what it comes down to is, what is the amount of money coming off my credit card or my bank account? That's how agents are going to look at it. And we want to keep it affordable. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I have going forward is we're pretty inflexible with where we want to move in terms of, of course, if we build a custom solution for someone or something like that, that's another conversation. But in terms of the main agent focusing product that people are going to use, I want to keep it affordable, but I hope that we can get it to answer your question, in the hands of a lot of people. Again, there's going to be a subset of people who just don't want to use technology. And I think hopefully that'll change over time as the industry kind of grows and becomes, more mature going forward with all the new people entering it. But that's kind of how I see it. I want to build a product that can help a lot of people, that a lot of people use, and use that to help agents like myself, at one point, make more money. I've always built it in the way that I look at it. What would I have wanted to use when I was starting? What do I wish I had? And it was this. It was something that could have, at the very least, guided me in the home, so I'm not flipping through cheat sheets and trying to memorize these different combinations and things that just, you want to be able to focus on selling, not having to underwrite and all these other things. And, like we'll go over probably in future episodes, is that's why we built in those tools into the software. Like, it tells you why a decision is the way it is. It tells you how much your commission is going to be. It's not just this block of text. It's integrated into how it works, like the Social Security billing star. Put your business there, you're going to see your persistency go up 5, 10, 15%. Some people have more. So we built in all these tools because we want to hit every single facet. But that's kind of how I see it, as we continue to expand it, and we continue to get it into the hands of as many people as we can. Is that kind of similar to how you see the software?
Yeah, that's I'm more concerned because I'm heavily into the code of this, obviously, because I'm a software developer. But I really, really don't want to ever compromise on the software quality because it's very easy, especially when there aren't many options to create a low quality solution that people will use anyway because they just don't have options. And I really see the future of this software just constantly being refined, or in the future, just have constantly refining the features, constantly improving, and just not compromising on quality at all. But I'm more focused on like, you know, I don't really know the industry as well, and I'm trying to learn the industry, and it's that's kind of where you come in and guide me and how we can. But I'm more focused on the what the software could be, and I see a lot of potential, and I'm trying to constantly every day improve the quality and whatnot. So I have a more immediate. What do you think would like? What is your immediate um, vision? Like, what is your vision for the immediate future of FAX Toolkit? So we could talk about 3 years in the future, but like in the coming months, what do you want to see in the
I think
software?
more linear growth is what that we want to really look forward to, is getting it out there organically. We have a lot of plans to market and get it out. That's, I think, kind of my main focus is to, we have these spurts of users every now and then, really based off of one person telling several other people, but we want to make it more organic, to have it people know, like, just know what it is, even if you don't use it, to know what it is. I think that's really my more immediate goal, is just to have people know, this is FX Toolkit, or I know someone who uses it. And that kind of, I think, with a lot of software products, and especially in this field where everything is so word of mouth, everyone's talking to each other in these group chats, insurance forums, and whatever else. I think that's really the main thing that I want, is to just kind of make it a little bit more linear, and to kind of gain that organic traction of just people knowing. Because I think if you ask 99% of agents, they don't even know that we exist. We haven't done any marketing, any paid marketing at this point. So it's all been our 50 something, 60 something users are all word of mouth. So that's really what my goal is to really push it out there. On LinkedIn, I think we have 97 something followers, but that's mostly in my immediate network. It's really pushing it out there and creating content like this to hopefully, alert more people of what we're doing. That's, I think, one of my bigger goals. Is that kind of similar to yours?
Yeah, and again, like um, I really want to see the mobile app improved. I think that's what's going to be on my to-do list for the coming months. Because unfortunately, since I'm the only developer right now, the mobile app lags behind the web application, and there's a lot of improvements that can be made there. So I would like to see within the next 2 months the CRM integrated into mobile, the same CRM that we have on web. I want to we want to fix that. Uh, the lead layout on iPad. So it's I have a lot more. I'm going to put a lot more emphasis on the mobile app going forward. I think. And I
Yeah,
think
I think we've done a good job handling that so far, because we have an iPad, which is what a lot of agents use, Microsoft Surface. You can just access the website version on the tablet, which is always up to date. On the mobile phone, we have the light version link that you can bookmark if you just want to run a quote. But I do agree that that's something that we're definitely going to emphasize. Doing a redesign of that, and because it's so much of the industry is mobile. Pandemic aside, it's a lot of it is in person and needing your mobile device to access it. And I think that's really been our journey to this point. I think going forward, unless Frankie has any other talking points, I think we're really just looking to continue improving it. There's not going to be some magical day where it just blows up, but hiring another person onto our coding team is probably our biggest want in the immediate future, and then just getting it into the hands of a lot more agents, because we improve it based on feedback. It's really the whole thing. Is whenever someone tells us something, we take that very valuably, because it's someone who's used the software, and if it's a complaint that they're, or not a complaint, but a suggestion that they have, it's probably something that other people are thinking of too. So that's really our immediate future kind of outlook. Is there kind of anything else that you wanted to cover?
no, I think that's about everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we're trying to make an episode every 2 weeks. Just again, topics, guests surrounding the software and insurance. But in the meantime, you guys can find us on all of our social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us on our website, www.fxtoolkit.com. And you can reach me or Frankie, Joe at fxtoolkit.com, and Frankie is Frankie at fxtoolkit.com. So thanks for watching. We hope to see you guys soon.